Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Maddie B, and we are so close. Football is going to be back this week, even though I hate the schedule, I hate the extra game, and I really don't know why the NFL did this, but we're going to talk about the Hall of Fame game in a second. I wanted to hit on the training camp hits before we get too far into it. I know we kind of skipped it last week, went heavy into college football. We also have some more of that coming up in this show as some stuff went down. But training camp, first one. I had a couple here. The Panthers have waived, I'm not going to know how to pronounce his last name, JTIBE, so Ibe, after he destroyed Keith Kirkwood at training camp. So he went out. And some fans were in the stands, and they said, there's a quote from like MSN or whatever, that's a little harsh. I know it was a bad hit, but it didn't look intentional. He was just playing football. And so I think what you see is a lot of teams out there that are putting their guys in full contact. You have guys that are trying to make the team, because like I never heard of that guy. They let him go. And so Kirkwood had to get taken in an ambulance. And so Matt Rule said that it was completely unacceptable and undisciplined. But I'm telling you, when you're a player, you're trying to make a team, how does this not make it even harder? Because if he lets up and like the guy breaks a tackle at practice or something, the coach is going to be on his ass saying like, yo, what was up with that? Oh yeah, I didn't want to hurt him. And then if he goes too hard and injures them, then it's like, whoa, what are you doing? That's undisciplined. And I know I've seen it on both sides, Matt. So, I mean, you're coach. What do you think?
I think there has to be a little bit more context to it. Like, there's certain times where if it's a particular period and you're wanting them to be more physical, like Pittsburgh Steelers are good with, they'll do a session where they're like on the goal line and it's really live and there's a lot of talking and different stuff that like you want that hitting to happen. But if it was during a period where you're not supposed to be taking guys to the ground, if you're just hauling off and hitting people, like there's always a couple kids that are in the middle of practice and they're like trying to hit the quarterback in the face. It's like you can't injure your quarterback at practice. Like, we want you to go hard, but like don't hit the quarterback.
Well, there was another one that happened too with my man Jabril Peppers. Did you see this one? So the New York Giants, they were having practice. I believe it was Peppers that delivered the hit, and it turned into a team brawl with Daniel Jones at the bottom of the pile, Matt. And Judge was pissed. He was so mad that he sent all the other coaches away, and he made his players perform 100-yard sprints. After like that was the end of practice. He ended it and just made everyone run sprints. And they said that was the angriest they've ever seen him. And so, like, and even people were saying, like, it wasn't even a hard hit. Like, it was a hard hit, but it wasn't, like, anything outside of football. But as your guys that you're trying to get into game speed and you're a defender, I honestly don't know what these coaches are thinking. And I almost wonder, like, you have all these preseason games. Do you even need to be hitting in practice? Like, you're adding an extra game. You're putting the hits in at practice. And it's something that I question even for college. Like, if you watch Michigan football and you know that Jim Harbaugh runs hard practices, you heard the NFL players complain about it. In the NFL, for whatever reason, it seemed to work. Like, his team was always conditioned and they were able to push through and win in the playoffs when other teams usually fade. But with Michigan, I think it's the opposite. Like, I think you're hitting too much. These young kids with all the classes, they get worn out. And then you look at his results over the last month. They're awful. And so, like, with this extra game coming into the NFL, I wonder how many of these physical coaches are going to see their teams even more burn out. I mean, you're still running preseason games. Like, the Steelers and the Cowboys, they have an extra game, I believe. Like, I didn't see the NFL, like, cancel another one, and we looked at the schedule, and they have one more game than these other teams. So it's like, all right, at some point, why you're adding all these extra games? When is the player going to heal or rest up and be able to do something? I just don't know.
I mean, part of it, I think, like, and it's very different from the pro level compared to college or even down into high school. But from a high school perspective, one of the things that I've looked at is that you have two groups of kids that play high school football. You have kids that are naturally hitters that you can just point them in the direction of whatever you want them to hit and they'll run through them. And you have guys that will they will go 1,000 miles out of their way to avoid contact. And the only thing that you ever do when you force those non-hitting kids to participate in the contact drills is you put them on the bench, because they end up faking injuries and it hurts you. And especially with small schools like where mine is, that you can't afford to lose guys to practice injuries where it's a confidence or a self-esteem type thing. When you get into the professionals, like in the NFL, it's even more highlighted. Like you look at the injuries that plagued Kansas City's offensive line. There were 2 or 3 injuries, and it was a night and day difference from their Super Bowl winning team from 2 years ago.
And that's something where I think as a coach, that's where you have to kind of put those things in. And they always talk about like how so many extra hits, or like look at the NBA, they talk about how many extra minutes. Like some of that's coaching. Like you look at some of the teams around the league, it's like, why are you running your superstars into the ground and then the playoffs come and they're destroyed? And then you look at the NFL, it's like the same thing. It seems like certain coaches always have, like if you're a coach and your team has like the injury bug every year, something's wrong. Like, I mean, you need to evaluate what the hell you're doing. I don't know how they can fix it, but...
Well, some of it is you change how you condition, and you change how...
Matt, look at the Colts. So, Wentz is hurt. One of their linemen got hurt. All those years with Andrew Luck getting hurt. At some point, isn't it a system? Like now Phillip Rivers is saying he might come back. And I could see him going back to the Colts because I don't know what they're going to do. But like, hey, why are all your guys getting hurt?
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I mean, like at some point someone has to say, if you're the owner, maybe it's the trainer. I don't know if they have the same staff. But like you have all these guys and it's like, I don't know. Like at some point, I think you have to do look at your team and say, hey, we need to do an evaluation here and see why all of this is happening. Because like you're looking at just injury after injury, and you're saying like, well, if only this guy was healthy, And I know their current coach didn't really coach Andrew Luck that long. But some of these guys, like you have the same training staff. It's not like whenever a new coach is hired, he brings in a new trainer and every single guy. Like I think the NFL is ingrained where you come in and you just get the training staff. And so I wonder if some of those guys just have those issues. In college, it seems like that's the quickest way to make a flip, is to just change your conditioning guy.
Well, and I think in the NFL, too, there's more flexibility with being able to pay for your own trainer, not necessarily using the people at the facility. Because if you're one of the higher paid guys, you have that luxury of being able to say, well, I'm still just going to work out with my own personal trainer and use my own system.
And that's why I'm saying, like, just get rid of the hits in practice. Like, these guys are how old? Why are they practicing so hard? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you tackling? I mean, there are some guys that are trying to make the team, but, like, preseason is already a joke. That's my thing. Why not just protect the guys? And that's my last thought on it. We can start talking about the Hall of Fame game unless you have anything else.
No, I mean, the only other thing that I'll say on is that I think that for as much as you can, I think teams are trying to do it, but there's finding the balance between you don't want to avoid contact at all. You don't want to be so far away from them that then when you get into the games, it's like it's a shock, because then I think you're going to see more in-game injuries. But I think like there has to be some level of contact where players get used to learning to fall and learning to handle some of those bumps and bruises that happen from playing a physical game.
And the coaches should know. I mean, in both scenarios that I've seen this week, the coaches get irate. It's like, well, you're putting them in that situation. What do you want them to do? Nothing? And so the other thing, like carrying on with this theme of pointless preseason stuff, the Hall of Fame game, like I said, they added an extra game to the Steelers. They're going with a 3-quarterback rotation. So there's no Ben Roethlisberger. You're not going to see him. Dak Prescott is having issues again. He's not fully healed. The Cowboys were trying to get him in the game, which I think would have been interesting because he hasn't played since he's been hurt, right?
I don't think.
So this was going to be his thing. I think they said he had some shoulder injuries, which was not his injury, right? Wasn't it his leg?
Yeah.
So he's having other issues, which could be rushing back too soon. I mean, your legs aren't there. You overcompensate with your arm, and then you get some other injury going into the season. But right now, the Steelers, like, you're coming in. I wouldn't play Ben at all. I would give him a couple series in the last preseason game and say, hey, you come out and you tell me when you're good. Like, you know your body. You know how much you need to do. I think that's what they should do with him, if I'm being honest. And so I think you let Rudolph and Haskins battle because you need to know what you have. They came out and they went against the reports that we've been seeing where this is Ben's last year. Now they're saying, well, it's really up to him. He could have another year. I don't see how. I mean, at some point, you're just looking at how many times you run the same horse that's losing the race, you know? Like, at some point, you're like, all right, we need to get another horse. So why wouldn't that be the case here? And just let him go. And I mean, what's the point? Like, unless your situation is so bad at quarterback with Rudolph and Haskins and whatever else you have, that, okay, you have no one else that you're going to bring Ben out one more time. Like, you know what you have with him. That's where, like, the Colts, like, all right, if they go with Phillip Rivers, like, are they going to win the Super Bowl? No, I would bet 0% on that. 0% chance they have of winning. Could they make the playoffs? Yeah. Like, we know what Phillip Rivers is. He's a good quarterback, get you to the playoffs, and that's it. You'll bow out in a week or two. Like, you would have to be an amazing... He's almost like a Drew Brees. If you take away that 1 year where the Saints had all of those allegations against them, where they were paying bounties and all of their issues, they haven't won shit. So I don't understand why Sean Payton gets, like, elevated to this status. It's like, you know, bro, you have this awesome offense. Where are you? Like, why are you losing into the playoffs? The NFC is not even good. Tom Brady can come in one year and win the whole thing. Like, that's how much of a joke the NFC has been. So, I don't know, like, what the Steelers can do. They're in the tougher division. I think at this point you look around, and unless you're really just trying to string out and you're thinking, like, hey, we can keep the Ravens down, or maybe, I mean, if you lose two to the Browns this year, which isn't unrealistic, what are you going to say, like, to your fans? Like, hey, don't worry, we're bringing Ben back for more of that next year. You know? Like, it's like watching teams go in opposite directions. I know the Ravens haven't really topped off, but if the Ravens and Browns both take the Steelers to the woodshed this year, what do you do? Like, I think you just have to give them a firm handshake and say, like, hey, you want to come back? We would have appreciated you being back last year. And not failing down the stretch, because you play those rivals late in the season, like, okay, you got to beat them. You got to beat them. So that's the one thing that I want to see from them. And if your quarterback situation's that bad, why not set it up? Like, Aaron Rodgers came back to the Packers. Maybe it's all about money with him. Maybe there's another issue. But, like, if he was really into making that flip and the Steelers wanted to do it, it's lining up where, hey, that could happen. Like, if the Steelers keep focusing on defense and with enough cap room, with, like, Ben leaving and some of the other things, like the cap getting back to where it was, that tight season could really help them land a guy like Aaron Rodgers. If they say, like, look, we're in a situation where you can jump in. Ben's had us close. He just couldn't get it done. He's past his prime, obviously. You're late in your career. Come right in. There's not going to be another situation like really like this. where the team is right there. And so maybe that's what the Steelers are thinking. Hey, we'll string it out with Ben, and maybe we can make a play for someone. I just don't understand what else their mindset would be. I mean, obviously they can't like come out and say like, oh yeah, we're hoping Ben's back if we can't get Aaron Rodgers, wink, wink. Because all those other teams would be like, what the hell? That's all that, whatever they call it. Collusion, interference, whatever. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that the NBA is supposedly cracking down as Carmelo Anthony just signs with the Lakers with LeBron. Someone he's been trying to sign with for years. He's like, you know what? This is the year. I'm sure LeBron didn't call him, or there's no... Like, I'm sure he had no idea. You know what I mean? So that's my thing. Like, if you're going to come in, and the Steelers have a couple games here to show it out, because they're not even counting the Hall of Fame game as a week, so you still have to do the full preseason. Like, come on, you guys got contract obligations here. You got to be on TV. At least on Thursday, this game. Maybe the game will be over by the time you listen to this. It will be on Fox, so that's good. You can get it for free anywhere, and you can watch some football. But let's get into some predictions. What do you think you're going to see from the Steelers this first week, Matt?
Well, I'm hoping to see them running the football well. I want to see what Harris can do, and granted, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be on a pitch count. I think it's going to be important to see him catching the ball out of the backfield and trying to get somewhat of a ground game going, because that's been the issue of Pittsburgh Steelers the last couple of years, is that they're so heavily reliant on Ben that they don't have anywhere else to go. So if they can show that they can run the ball, I think that's going to make their offense so much more diverse.
And that's something that I think everyone's going to be looking at. I think you're going to look at two keys. The running game, because the running game is going to dictate how much these other quarterbacks show. I mean, teams are going to stack the boxes first week, knowing that they're not really going to be airing it out. But I would like to see Haskins move the ball. I think he had the accuracy in college, something that a lot of college players coming into the NFL, they really don't have. I know it's a bigger ball, but I think he can get it done in the air. I just think that the off-the-field stuff and the discipline, he needs to put it together and just focus. Like, he's been saying he's going to try to win the number 2 position. I want to even see more I want to see more confidence from him, where he's saying, like, no, I'm going to be the number 2. And I'm going to be ready to step in for Ben when he steps down. Like, I don't want to see, like, yeah, I'll be competing for the second spot. Like, that's not a good quarterback to me. Like, he needs to be in that locker room saying, like, no, I'm going to take over this team. I'm the guy they drafted me in the first round for a reason, you know? So that's something I'm looking for from him. Leadership, and I want to see the defense healthy.
Well, I think it'll be curious to see if with Ben not playing, what does the offense look like under Matt Canada? Is it going to be the same style of dink and dunk, pitch and catch, the bubble screens that have driven fans crazy over the years? Or do we see more of the pit style motions and trades and shifts and getting into some of that stuff that made his offense really good when he was calling plays for Pitt?
Well, that's going to be something where everyone keeps talking about what's the offense going to be, and I saw some people talk about, oh, they need some more surprise and stuff, but it's like, you're not going to have that surprise if you're audibling out of whatever's being thrown in, and you're just kind of running your own offense, Ben. You know? I mean, like if someone was critiquing Peyton Manning, they're like, yeah, the coach really needs to do something here. It's like the coach is doing nothing. Like, he's putting in sets and game planning a little bit, but when it comes to the game, like at some point the quarterback just takes over because he has the experience. He's seen everything. He knows what's going to happen. It's like even watching Tony Romo in the booth where he's able to call plays and stuff. Like, if you think that that's like an anomaly, where like, oh, that's one quarterback, he's crazy, he knows all that stuff. Wrong. All the quarterbacks that have been in the league that long know it. Like, they all know the reads. It's all been the same stuff. Like, it's not like there's anything that's going to be completely innovative on defense that they haven't seen. So it's all about mixing it up, trying to just win one battle at a time. And so that's what I want to see on Thursday. If it comes out and it's like a bloodbath either way, I really don't think you have to worry because it's the first week back. But I want to see some movement. I'd like to see the defense hit hard, come out fast, and be hungry. And that's something, too, where, like, if you're not hitting in training camp and you get into the games, I think you're going to be a little bit hungrier. Where, like, if you're getting jacked up and you're told, like, yo, don't be hitting like that, that's too hard. In the game, like, mentally, that's going to be tough to switch that back on. And so that's why another thing, too, like, you don't want to be a coach telling your guy, like, yo, you're hitting too hard. Because in the game, like, you're going to be slowing down at practice, where then your body slows down in the game. And that's where I think you can get hurt, Matt. So just avoid it at all costs, and then it's like, hey, it's game time. Now you get to hit someone. Let's go out there and punish them. Like, I think that's a different thing. So,
but there are ways that you can, if you take it serious, like with some of those non-contact drills, because of how much of an emphasis football has taken with the hawk tackling from the Seahawks and trying to keep the head out. If you fit it well, you can do everything leading up to the tackle without initiating the contact and bringing them to the ground. But what ends up happening is you have to have players that are disciplined enough to bend their hips and bend their knees and get down into the position where they would normally make those tackles and tag off on them. And it's something that especially hard over the last couple of years with our teams, is that by trying to get away from doing as much physical contact during practice to continue to force them to be disciplined with, hey, I know we're not hitting, but you still need to show me that you're in the position to make this play so that you're not going into the game with poor tackling skills.
And see, I don't even know, like at the NFL, you're on a totally different level. Like you just need guys that can be able to get in position. Like wasn't it the Giants last year where they had that one play where there was like no one deep? It's like, why aren't you practicing that stuff? Like, if your guys are out of position in the game, that's 100% coaching. You can practice that without tackling. And I think you could see a lot more teams be competitive week in and week out instead of seeing, I mean, remember how it used to be like a joke when there would be a team that had no wins because it never happened? Because the teams were at least semi-equal? Now it seems like there's always a team that's like, oh yeah, that team, they're never going to win any games. Like, they're that bad. And it's like, all right, well, why isn't the coach coaching him up? Isn't that his job? And then all the fans complain, like, hey, we're never going to get anywhere if we keep firing all these coaches. It's like, but your coach is letting your team come out there looking like a joke. Like, it's not, you could make an easy switch, like, hey, we're getting killed. We're giving up 40 points a game. Why don't we try to do some more, like, ball control and offense, you know? Give our defense some rest. Instead, it's like, nope, we're just going to blitz the hell out of him and get torn up. And then on offense, we're not going to know what the hell we're doing. It's like, these are NFL guys. So come on. The preseason should be just focused on making sure you're in position. You're going to see some broken plays, but like, I don't remember seeing this many broken plays throughout. Like, if you follow, there's so many teams that are just so bad that you see broken plays all the time. And I think that's just coaching. Maybe that's why teams are scared and they always recycle coaches. They don't want to go out there looking like a brand new team. But I don't know. I don't really have anything else, Matt, for the Hall of Fame game or any NFL stuff. But if you have anything else, let me know.
Well, as far as the NFL stuff, did you see Aaron Rodgers' press conference?
No. Why would I watch that?
Well, my Twitter feed was absolutely blown up because of how borderline aggressive Aaron Rodgers came out with saying, like, his stance on how everything played out. It wasn't just a draft day. Like, it wasn't just him being mad about them, like, not taking his consideration for draft stuff. I thought, like, it was kind of funny to see this perspective because on one hand, he's saying he'd like to be able to try to help recruit people to Green Bay because it's not exactly a destination, like, location for people to come and play. So they're not going to attract free agents and stuff because that if he's involved in the process, he could possibly be someone to help, like, reach out and try to talk to guys as things are coming up. And the ironic part is then a little while later, the Raiders had a comment from one of their executives that said, oh yeah, they reached out with Jacobs, the running back, several times about Leatherwood, the tackle that they drafted from Alabama. They're like, yeah, we've had we had a lot of conversations about him to make sure that he was a right fit since they played at Alabama together. So it's like you have two different sides where it seems like the Packers weren't involving him in like letting him know like what kind of players they were looking at taking to try to see if he can help or help in any way, compared to where the Raiders are looking to try to get as much information as they can.
Oh, I don't think you could read too much into that because it's only one guy, and like from all accounts, like Aaron Rodgers' own family doesn't talk to him. Like he's been known to just go out and not be that guy. So he's been there for how many years? How do you know that the team hasn't tried in all of those time to like get him his thoughts on stuff, and then he just didn't do it, and eventually they just gave up. And like I did see some of the comments that you're talking about, and my take back from it was he wants out. At this point, he's just giving excuses, and all his teammates are like, "Yeah, we've been hoping he's coming back," but it's like he wanted, like, if his demands kept changing, like I think he just wants out. He's making excuses, and the way he's making his excuses, it's reading like a press release. Like, hey, yeah, you know what? I am such a team player that I've been really hoping to recruit more guys for this team. And other teams are going to see that, and they're going to be like, yeah, you know what? He does seem great. We could bring him in and do that same thing, where it's like the Packers probably have a totally different thing because, like, you have to be nuts to think, like, hey, your star quarterback's here. Let's not talk to him. Like, they're probably bending over backwards to make him happy. And they've been doing it for so long. And I honestly think that he's just mad that they drafted someone by trading up, because he was hoping that they would give him more help. And to his point, like, they haven't really given him more help. And that's why I think he's gone. Like, if he ends up playing the rest of his career there, I think he'll regret it. And I don't think they win anything else. Like, they're not really trying to help Devontae Adams. Like, they haven't helped him with skill players. So at this point, it's almost like a Steelers thing, but kind of opposite. The Steelers have been trying to help Ben. I just think that he's lost it. And once he gets at a certain point, conditioning or injuries or whatever takes over. And I mean, he's been injured a lot. So at some point, like, your body has that much stress on it, it's done. Ben has taken so many hits, he wasn't going to be a guy like Tom Brady that's just trying to avoid hits the entire time. Like, there's a reason why, like, Tom Brady, I mean, he's had some injuries too, but after a while, he's been so quick at just getting the ball out. That's not Ben. Ben's still scrambling at age like 40. It's like, what are you doing? Why are you out there extending these plays? Just throw the ball away. Like, sometimes Tom Brady just throws the ball right into the dirt. It's like, all right, what's he doing? Or like even the play last year, like, and he's out there making jokes of himself. Did you see the Biden thing where he went, I think it was like the White House or whatever?
Yeah.
He was just attacking Biden, then he was like making fun of himself, and then like making fun of all kind of stuff. I was like, dude, this is hilarious. I don't care what side you're on. Like, the jokes, they were perfect. So I don't know who wrote them for him, but if he's writing his own stuff, I'm like, Jesus, man, what can't that guy do? But I don't see that from Ben. I think he's kind of like, this is how I've always played, and when I get injured, that's it. And you're never going to come back from that. You're never going to come back.
Well, I think it helps him. We've talked at length of this, where have a ground game where you're not having to throw 50 passes a game, and you reduce, like, instead of 50, throw 25. That's 25 less times that you're getting hit, that you have to scramble, that you make plays. The percentage of having an injury goes way down.
And that's where, I mean, a lot of these other younger quarterbacks too, you see like them extend the plays, and it's always like, ugh, what are you doing? Like Kyler Murray, I'm always like, he's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt. And so I'm just like waiting. Does. And then it's like, man, I knew it. So it's like, all right, well, what are you going to do going forward? It's like, bring that in, try to get a team. And I don't even think a coach can help it. Because like, you see these coaches are like, hey, why didn't the coach do something? It's like, all right, come on, calm down. The guy's making more than the coach. So like, he's not going to listen to him. He's not going to change his style and say like, you know what, coach, I never thought of that. The one thing though that I did, and this, I want to hear your thoughts on this, but why don't coaches teach their guys how to slide? Like, do you practice that?
We have not.
I was going to say, that's a no. You took that long breath. I knew it was going to be a no. And I think you should. Because how many guys, like if you look at Kyler Murray, you know he played baseball, and same with Russell Wilson. There's a reason those guys are out there and they're able to extend, take and slide and be able to like stay healthier compared to some other guys that if you watch them slide, it's like, what are you doing? Like they've never even been on a slip and slide mat in their life.
All three of my quarterbacks from last year were baseball guys, so I know that they know how to slide.
But still, I think you should practice it because I think that's a big key where if you can slide and take one less hit, you never know because some of the guys, it's like you're watching them slide and they slide so late and they're like on their knee and they're like taking a pop and it's like, what are you doing? Like, come on, if you're going to do it, commit. Just do it earlier. Like you already got the first down. Like I'm surprised that some players just don't get the first down and then go down. Like they should know the situation. But I don't know. That's all I have. I don't want to keep ranting about random stuff. But you have anything else for the NFL?
No.
All right. We're trying to keep the shows a little bit lighter as we get through the preseason stuff. So I'm trying to stay on time here. So the big story last week, the SEC expansion. I think everything's official now. I think it went through. Texas and Oklahoma withdrew from the Big 12. They went to the SEC, and I think they were approved. So everything's going to happen at least by 2025. And just to give another recap, if you missed last week's show, the TV deal, the way it works, Texas and Oklahoma, unless the Big 12 explodes or like they dissolve or whatever, I don't know how many teams they have to have, like at least a fourth or a third to dissolve it, where they can get out of their contract. Now, the tricky thing is Fox owns their rights right now. When they go to the SEC, everything's pretty much CBS and ESPN. CBS only pays for like, what do they show? A game or two a week, Matt? Like they have like the 3:30 slot, and I don't think they show any night games. So most of the SEC contract is ESPN and ABC. And so that's where like they're getting a big game, like a big team away from Fox. Because Fox was showing Oklahoma and Texas all the time, and they were directly competing with ESPN. And I saw somewhere where they had the TV ratings, the Big 12, and 90% of their highest rated games had either Oklahoma or Texas in it. So this is a big blow to them. And some additional stats that came out, their commissioner kind of hinted that right now from TV partners that they've talked about it, right now their current deal is $345 million a year divided by 10. Each team gets $30 million, 34.5 to be exact. It's already going to be dropped at least 50%, which is alarming to those schools. So I don't think Texas and Oklahoma have to do anything. I think the league is just going to panic and break up, which is something that I didn't want to see because, like, I think they can get the number back up. It might not get up to 30 million or whatever, but it could be at least competitive with the Pac-12 and the AACC, which the ACC's deal, I knew it was bad. But, Matt, it's even worse than I thought. They're locked in with that poor contract through 30, 35, or 36. So they signed a deal through 2035. Like they still have 15 more years on that poor deal. So while they're there and their money's going up little bits at a time, the SEC and the Big Ten are going to jump to $80 million a year. Over double what those schools are making. And so, of course, the big rumor, originally they said that the SEC reached out to Ohio State and Michigan. Then there were reports that Clemson and Florida State asked the SEC if they started to inquire to see if there would be room for them. And there were some early reports saying that they were basically told no at this time. And I wonder how much of that is like their deal, their TV deal. If they join the SEC can make no money off them. Because like the SEC doesn't, they don't get a sale, like a cut of jersey sales or ticket sales. All of their money comes from like the TV deals and like the other marketing deals. And if you're locked into the ACC for 15 years, you're really stuck there unless the conference completely explodes, which I don't see how that would happen. But I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
Well, I saw that there were some different releases that came out that they were saying, as far as the conference, they don't want to rush to make any decisions as far as like trying to add additional schools or trying to combine with different leagues, whether it be merging with the SEC or with another conference. So I think like the people are trying to just see, like they're trying to find out where the fallout is. What's the strategy from the SEC now that they've picked up these other two schools, that what's their plan, and then how can the other teams adjust accordingly. So I mean, I don't think it's an ideal situation, and for years the ACC was literally just Florida State, and Clemson has kind of carried that torch for football now the last couple of years, and it's always kind of been a one-trick conference. They've had teams that have had good seasons. You've had Georgia Tech had some good seasons. Duke's had a couple decent years. Miami, but they're not contributing conference championships. They're not getting into those playoff games. So I think that kind of hurts them too when you're looking at trying to recruit for some of these, like what draws in.
And see, that's where I think some of these teams have to be very, very careful. Because like right now, the SEC's they're talking about going to a 9-game schedule, which I've argued has really hurt the Big 12, the Big 10, and the Pac-12 right now. They all have an extra loss, and whenever you get into the playoff talk, guess which conferences they've always been talking about? Like, oh, they have one too many losses, but they've also been playing one too many tough games. Because everyone's like, oh, well, you know what? The SEC, like they had that one really hard non-conference game, but that would be their 9th game. Like they're giving up a conference game. Like Michigan's playing Wisconsin for no reason. They could very easily be playing Central Michigan before the Ohio State game or someone else to be resting up. How many times have they gone into that game injured? Where it's almost like the Big Ten. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Are you trying to hurt your teams? And so like the SEC now, they're talking about a 9-game schedule, which I think is why most likely you're going to lose the Florida State game. You're going to lose the South Carolina Clemson game because that would put them at 10. I don't see any way that they play the same game because you're pretty much then locked into the schedule. Like they're not going to pick up a third or a second non-conference, Power 5 team. They're just not. Like why? If you're Florida, why would you do that to yourself? Like that Michigan game they kicked off the season with, that's gone. Like they're either going to play Florida State or the Florida State game's gone. And I think if you're looking at it from a money perspective, the Michigan-Florida game probably outdrew that Florida State game. Like I would put money on it because that was a highly ranked game, and that was like the most watched that weekend that kicked off. So that would have to make Florida more money than just playing Florida State again for the whatever random time. So like I would wonder if they're trying to get into that because you're going to lose a rival, like the way they're looking at it. And if the ACC, if they're not going to do anything, and I don't even know like what their game plan would be, because right now the SEC, when that report came out, they specifically said only Notre Dame is available that moves the needle. So like everyone knows Notre Dame's the last piece to fall. And that's where like if they join the ACC, Florida State and Clemson would be idiotic to leave. And I'll tell you why. Because they move into the SEC, SEC is going to be beating itself up. What happened when Miami had no competition in their conference in like the 80s? Guess what? In the 90s, they were a powerhouse. You remove Clemson and Florida State from there, add Notre Dame and whatever they fill that conference back out with, West Virginia and maybe like a Connecticut or something. Miami is going to have that to sell to their recruits. Like, hey, you know what? It's basically us versus Notre Dame now. And it's just like the old Big East. The boys are back, baby. We're able to pay players now. Like we can get you all money. And I think that they're going to regret that. Like, I think if Clemson and Florida State leave, you don't want an unfiltered Miami all by themselves again. Because, like, at some point, Oklahoma and Texas, they jump in. What if Oklahoma never wins the conference for 10 years and Alabama keeps winning it every year? Like, how is that going to be a selling point? And same with Clemson. Florida State, I think, could compete. I mean, we both know Clemson hasn't been Clemson for very long. They've had one successful coach, and in the 80s, they were paying allegations that they were paying players, and once that came to light and there was an investigation, guess what? They dropped back off. So, like, that makes me think, oh, they were just paying players, you know? Why wouldn't that change, you know? So, Clemson joining, I think they would be a worse Auburn. Right?
Yes.
Like, they might compete every once in a while, but, like, their ceiling is going to be eight wins and a loss to UCF. And everyone's going to be like, oh, why did we join this again?
Well, I must think, like, when I saw the addition and you look at how the conferences are aligned, it's almost like the SEC does have their share of easier games, like, in their non-conference slate. But I think, like, I've looked at basically by adding Oklahoma and Texas, they've basically created for themselves a variation of the Big 12 where they're going to end up the conference is going to eat itself because you're going to have all these guys that it's going to be tough to justify putting 3 teams in from the SEC into the playoffs. The way that they've always kind of penciled in the early going, Oklahoma has to be a team that has to be in. Alabama has to be in. And then they usually try to, like, push, like, Georgia, or there's always, like, 2 or 3 other schools. Like, they were pushing Florida at one point to try to say that they should be in until they threw their shoe out the door.
I mean, Matt, I could see this becoming very similar to, like, Oklahoma joining the SEC becomes like how Nebraska joined the Big Ten, where they think like, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to dominate. And now recruits that are on the fence, maybe they go to Arkansas now. You know, maybe they don't go to Oklahoma because they're like, you know what? Oklahoma hasn't won the SEC, but LSU has. Maybe I'll go to LSU now. And like, look at what the Big Ten West is. It's kind of like a crapshoot where you have a couple strong teams, but you know that most likely, and this is under my assumption that Alabama moves to the East. So Alabama's in the East. They're now the Ohio State where they're going to be the rep. No longer is Georgia and Florida like rotating who's going to lose to Alabama. It's going to be like, all right, Alabama's in from the East. They're going to beat the crap out of whoever's in the West. How does that help Oklahoma again? Now you're losing before the playoffs. And you're hoping that you get picked in. So like the best case for Oklahoma is for them to lose and not play Alabama in the championship and then back their way into the playoffs. Conferences are coming out and they're saying like, maybe we shouldn't expand the playoffs. But to me, I still think you expand because like you said, go to that 9-game schedule. I think things are a lot more balanced. And if the Big 12 stays together, like I keep seeing how some of their like ADs and like presidents or whatever are calling out Texas like TCU's did. And they were like, we're 7-3 against Texas. They're just tired of losing to us. That's why they're leaving. But TCU needs to keep that rage going, and they just need to start winning in the playoffs. You know what I mean? Or winning their bowl games. Because I think it's very similar to like football or basketball. Every year the conference, like they weigh it. They looked at the Big Ten this year. The Big Ten got all those teams in. Only Michigan survived. So next year, you think they're going to get all those teams in again? No. So some of these other conferences, they actually just have to win. Win your bowl games. If the SEC performs so bad, guess what? They're not going to keep getting teams in, and then you're going to be able to siphon money away because you got to remember, everyone's talking about how the SEC's some powerhouse now. I saw the new projection where they're like, now they're equal with the Big Ten. They're both projected to make $70 to $80 million in 5 years or whatever it is, even with Texas and Oklahoma. There's not that much more money that's going to go around. Maybe the new deal will blow that out of the water. I don't know. But like, if you're the Big Ten, just sit there. I do think that the one thing for the ACC to worry about is when the initial expansion came, there was no plan to stop at 14. I think it was pretty clear that 14's an awkward number. And back when they took Maryland, they were trying to get to like 16, I believe. And they had offered Georgia Tech, Virginia, and North Carolina, from what I've heard, all AAU schools. And Georgia Tech told them no, they weren't interested. I wonder how they feel about that now. But like, and North Carolina said they wouldn't leave without Duke and something else, like, you know how they were doing. And Virginia was like, yeah, we can't leave without Virginia Tech. So instead they take Rutgers and they like stay still. If they would have took those 3 teams and got to 16, now it's like they're waiting to see, hey, can we get Notre Dame? If Notre Dame doesn't actually make a move, because I saw some comments from their president where he said he doesn't care. He set the new playoff up with 12 teams so that they could stay independent. So he set that up where he thought it was more valuable for him to not be in a conference championship game, have a home playoff game potentially where they would make more money from it, and then if they lose that, it would be the same as losing a conference championship game. So he was okay with that because he could still recruit and say that they were in the playoffs. And so I don't see how the playoffs are going to just stay at 4 if Notre Dame, one of the biggest prizes, is out there saying like, yo, we wanted this. I think the other conferences are going to be like, you know what? Let's do it because maybe we can. And once we keep Notre Dame out for 10 years, because like we have this big powerhouse SEC that's going to take all the extra bids, then Notre Dame will have to join us or make a pick. But like, I don't know. I don't think there's anything here that would really change my viewership. Like, are you going to watch more SEC games this year, Matt?
No, I'll probably watch the same amount that I did previously.
Which was all of them?
All of them.
Now, I mean, like, maybe I'd catch an Oklahoma game, but like, I still think, to me, I always usually had the biggest SEC game on. But a lot of them were like, after a certain point, you're not watching Ole Miss at Auburn. Like, you're just not watching that game. It's not interesting. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with the conference. Maybe you're catching a Florida, Georgia, and you're like, hey, you know what? The winner of this is going to be in the championship game, you know, on the East. Maybe not so much anymore. Maybe you'll catch the rivalry games. But the one thing that I think, and I'm really hoping the way they worded it, they made it seem when Notre Dame said that they were the last big prize that was available. I'm hoping that Michigan and Ohio State turned them down. Because like for the Ohio State to jump to the SEC, it really doesn't make any sense for them. I view them as like Oklahoma. Why would you leave? You're at the top of the world right now. You have like the number 1 recruiting class. Why would you jump into another conference where now you're not even going to be in the playoffs if you lose to Alabama, you know? That's the same. It was the same argument with Oklahoma. Are you mad because you went 0-4 in the playoffs? Win. How is going 0-4 in the SEC championship game going to help you anymore? It's just a money grab. Like you're hurting your football team long term, and I wouldn't be surprised in 10 years if they have as big of a drop off as Nebraska did joining the Big Ten, and you can't get it back. Like crazy.
Well, I almost think that there's a little bit of arrogance too from some of these schools that are thinking, well, Nick Saban's getting up there in age, and Alabama's not going to be Alabama once he's gone, so let's get on board now, and then when he gets out, we can shift the recruiting in our advantage, saying we're playing in the SEC and, you know, all the ESPN accolades that go along with that.
But see, like, you're already Oklahoma and Texas. You're already recruiting at a top 10 level. You're not going to go any higher. I honestly think Texas was I don't think it was arrogance. I think it was more jealousy, and they were scared. Their Big 12 record was worse than what Missouri's been putting up in the SEC. Like I said, they're losing records against like TCU and Baylor, and like you can't have that at Texas. So I think they saw what A&M was doing, and they said, you know what, they're ahead of us, and we're gonna just concede and say like they're better than us. We need to join the SEC to compete with them. I honestly, that's what my view from Texas. I saw Oklahoma saying like, hey, we already lost our rival Nebraska. We don't want to be left behind. If Texas leaves, we might not have a chance. Let's go now. So I think it was more reactionary from Oklahoma, and I think it hurts them more. So like the Texas single-handedly killed Oklahoma, and they didn't put themselves in a better position. Because you're Texas, you're already recruiting. Like they have the worst results with the highest recruiting. Like if you did, like, you know how they always do that? Like how many wins above like your recruiting class or whatever. Texas was always at the bottom. USC too. I mean, for all the shit that people talk on Michigan, like Harbaugh's had consistent, like decent seasons that I think most people would be happy with. Texas hasn't even put that together. They're barely above 500, Matt, in the past 10 years.
Oh, I know. That's why I said, like, I think you include Texas just as a knowing that it collapses the Big Ten network or the Longhorn network, or do you think that they just build that as an offshoot of part of their ESPN package?
Well, everyone keeps talking about streaming, and you know that's my thing, and you hate streaming. And so, like, at a certain point, some of the streaming stuff is very, very stupid. And I want to get into it because the last topic is the Olympics, and so I can kind of tie this in. The way the Olympics streaming was set up was so idiotic that you can tell that the TV network execs have no idea how to make streaming viable. I mean, watch a game on ESPN and tell me how many blank commercials you see. Why are those blank? How much money are they leaving on the table? And this has been going on for a decade, Matt. Because remember how we used to have the ESPN viewer where you could have like 4 to 8 games on at a time? Like, people forget streaming used to be a million times better. You could have all of your games on ESPN for free or whatever right there on your TV, but people didn't know how to use it because they don't know how to use technology. Like most people, like, I don't know, what do they call them, like boomers? Like, they don't know how to use the internet. They don't know what it is. And so, like, I think people are really underestimating the television contract that's coming up, too. Like, everyone's saying, like, oh, the SEC's only adding teams for streaming. Ha, 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 look at the Big Ten. They're going to have to get rid of Maryland and Rutgers because it's so bad. What makes them any less valuable than Ole Miss and Mississippi State? Small states don't carry anything, don't win anything. Like, they're not. I told you last week, the Rutgers has a top 10 alumni base. Who the hell do you think is going to pay for these streaming networks? It's not random Joe Schmo. It's going to be alums and diehard fans, Matt. So, like, at some point, you just can't add small schools because they used to be good at football once. Because those fans, they're not going to buy it. I saw the same argument from Kansas. Some Kansas guy wrote this gigantic post about how it was so arrogant, it made me laugh. And he was talking about how they are a lock for the Big Ten because of how many T-shirt sales they have and how valuable they are as a basketball program. And I thought, the conference doesn't get any of your T-shirt sales. They don't care about basketball. They just had the most bids in the Big Ten. Why would adding Kansas in there help one bit? Like, it wouldn't. If you look at, I sent you the draft picks because Kansas always talks about like how much of a blue blood they are. Michigan's about to pass them. They're behind them five players behind them, all-time first-round draft picks, Matt. Kansas, a blue blood. I mean, Kentucky is about 20, 30 spots ahead of Michigan. That's how low Kansas is on the list of blue bloods. Like, they're not anywhere near North Carolina. And that's where I think, like, North Carolina, that's the big prize. I think the Big Ten sits and they ask for North Carolina instead of Kansas. Why wouldn't you? Like, why not wait? If Florida State and Clemson leave, you know North Carolina's going to leave unless they have Notre Dame locked up. So the Big Ten just grabs the guys they were going to grab. They grab Virginia, they grab North Carolina, and they grab Georgia Tech. And then you're directly in their recruiting range. And then I think if it's going to be an expansion race, then you say, like, hey, Miami and Notre Dame, you guys want to come in this conference? Because, like, the Big Ten, then you're right in all of the SEC recruiting grounds. You're in Florida. You're in Georgia. I don't know what you would do in Texas at that point. That's why I said the Big Ten should just immediately call A&M right now while they're upset about this Texas merger or joining and say, like, look how powerful you were when you were on your own. Do you think Texas is going to get 8 to 10 wins in the SEC? Hell no. Come to the Big Ten. You can get 10 wins. You can just take the Big Ten West over. Who do you want to take with you? You want to get Oklahoma State? Like, pick your team to get to 16. I think that's what the Big Ten should do. And then that would be a direct blow to the SEC because then the Big Ten is in one of the other biggest states in Texas. And if they can somehow join with the Pac-12, I think it's over. Like, I don't think the Big Ten goes anywhere. They might do that anyway. The Big 12 and the Pac-12 were talking about joining, but I don't think that matters. Like, who's going to watch those schools? If only 10% of your games rank with the remaining schools, what's it going to matter if you're playing Utah or Washington State or Oregon State? Like, you're not going to get any more viewers. Like, who's going to pay for that network? You're not. Like, I'm surprised that the Big Ten just didn't say, like, well, the rumor is that the Big Ten network is going to have its own streaming thing coming up soon, where even if you don't have cable, you can just pay $15 a month and get all the Big Ten games, which I've been begging for. Maybe that price is higher, which I would hope not, because, like, you need to compete with Netflix still. People aren't going to pay outrageous prices. But, like, if you're paying, like, even say $20 a month and you get every single sport, every single game, that's a big deal. And if you have eight of the largest alumni bases in your conference, the Big Ten isn't going to fall behind the SEC. They're just not. They already make more money than them. So that's my last thing. That's what I think the Olympics right now. NBC is my most hated network. If the Big Ten came out and said, hey, we signed a new television deal, it's worth $8 trillion. Michigan now has $1 trillion more than every other whatever. I would say, oh my God, this is the worst idea I've ever heard. Because NBC has nothing. They killed NHL. They killed it. They're killing the Olympics. The ratings are so low, Matt, it's like cut in half. And then they're like, why isn't anyone watching this? I turn it on and I think, all right now there should be swimming on. They showed the race one time.
Nope.
No, let me finish. This is on live TV. They show it one time. You go to the bathroom, you miss it, you don't get to see it again. They show no replays, Matt. It immediately goes to the booth, and it's some lady that I've never seen. She's like 80 years old talking about it. I'm like, what the hell? Just show me what happened. Show me a replay. And then they're like, well, here's a flashback to qualifiers in 2017. Look how much he's grown. It's like, what are you showing me this for? I am on here to watch the Olympics that are happening right now. Not qualifiers. Not qualifiers, Matt. And I tried to watch, because we had talked about fencing. I thought, you know what? I want to check out fencing. I go on their streaming app. Half of the videos are just the team celebrating. It's like, here's someone celebrating winning the bronze. I'm like, how about showing me just, the fight? Or hell, save yourself some time and just show the entire thing. Why are you wasting time cutting these down into 2-minute clips? Who is this for? Like, I tried to use their streaming thing and I got so frustrated I just pretty much deleted it. I was like, guess I'm not watching the Olympics this year. I try to watch on live TV. They're talking about it. The one thing that really disappointed me in their coverage is, like, they had the gymnastic teams, and everyone knows, I didn't want to really harp on, like, the Simone Biles and, like, her dropping out and, like, the controversy around that and how everyone's rallying around her. They had the entire team there, including gold medalists, Matt, sitting right there. They didn't ask them one thing. I don't think that they talked to the gold medalist at all. Instead, they just kept talking to Simone about how she won the bronze. And Simone just kept saying how she won it for her. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I felt so bad for the one girl because she looked clearly upset. And I'm pretty sure they didn't ask her any questions. And she was the one that Suni Lee, I believe is her name, that she won like the all-around gold. Like, she came as like the all-around gymnast, number one. Why are you not focused on her? Like, who is this for? There was one where it was like, I don't know the other guy's name, but there was like, and I know you're focusing on like the United States people, but there was one runner, I don't know what country he's from, but he broke a world record, I believe, at running. And instead they focused on the United States guy that got like silver or bronze. And I'm like, holy crap, why don't you talk about like the world record guy? Like from another country? Because I don't remember, like it wasn't like China or some big country. So it's like, all right, why don't you just, show a little bit of it? It's like, I don't know. Who's the coverage for? Like, what am I seeing here? I hate the replays when you don't know if it's a replay or if it's real. And I've seen that complaint from other people. And so, like, if you're watching, the Olympics is like the big event. They have 4 years, Matt, to plan this. And that's the quality of streaming that's available. Why would colleges have better streaming than that? You're going to get to watch Florida State highlights where half of it is just like a 3-minute speed up clip of their last game. you're going to want to watch softball, but they only show a replay from 2005. And you're like, wait, what about the game on right now? It's like, no, you'd prefer to watch this historical game, Matt. Trust us. It's easier for us to not have live games at all. And I think that's the streaming that you're going to see. I honestly think that instead of doing like a Netflix, like I said, where you can just pick which team you want to follow and that, I guarantee, and I could be wrong on this, so remind me and come back with me, but I think what's going to happen is you're going to have your streaming channel that's going to be just like the TV channel. If you wanted to watch Florida State basketball play a exhibition or preseason game against Oklahoma State, but it's on the same time as Alabama's water polo game, nope. You're going to watch water polo. That's the only game that's available on that SEC channel. So Florida State will join and be like, what am I doing here? Like, why can't I watch the sport that I want to watch? Or like the ACC one right now, it's like, hey, I want to see what NC State's up to. Blacked out. It's like, why is this blacked out? There are no fans allowed in the game. And they're like, well, you know what? You could go and watch from your car on the highway. If you really wanted to watch that baseball game, nah. You got to drive out of state and then sign into your ESPN account, and then it won't be blacked out, Matt. It's like, what are you doing? Well, so if you think streaming is going to be that good, just try to use the ACC network this year, and then tell me, like, that's who's running the SEC network. So if you think it's going to be this awesome streaming thing, no. Your best hope is that the Big Ten innovates like they did with the Big Ten network, and Fox kind of goes hands off and says, you know what? We're going to just let you do one streaming app. Because right now they kind of have it, but it's so fractured by like their structure. You have the Big Ten network to go, which is, I think, whatever's on TV. Then there's like a Big Ten Network Plus, which is like some of their other games. And then there's like another version of the school's broadcast where you can see games that aren't on the Big Ten Network. So right now you can pay extra to watch like Michigan lacrosse. But if you want to watch hockey, you have to have the middle one, which is another payment. And then if you wanted to watch like the basketball team, then you have to have Big Ten to go. And you hope that the game's on there and they're not showing Nebraska ball. Like, that's it. Like, that's how it works. So
if I'm making 3 different payments just to watch whatever sports team, I may just
Matt,
go to the woods.
That's exactly how it is for the Olympics right now. Oh, you want to watch this? Oh, download the NBC News app. That one's on news. Oh, wait. We're actually showing news right now. So we moved it to NBC Peacock or whatever the hell that thing is. Oh, it's on Peacock right now. Oh, wait. We decided to show tennis. So you have to go to the Olympics app. And then you go there. It's like, you know what? There's nothing else on. So we put it on main NBC. So now you have to go to your regular over-the-air cable. And then by that point, I'm like giving up. I'm just like, what am I doing? Why am I downloading 4 different apps to watch NBC Olympics? Well,
exactly. And you know, I say this for as much as I've hated streaming, because I feel like we were spoiled when we were watching, you know, our ESPN 3 or whatever it was, where like you were able to, they showed the slate, you went to one place, the games were there, you had like 4 different screens that you could pull it up. It was very user friendly, and you could get to where you needed to be.
And it would also give you the ticker. I think there was a ticker at the bottom that said like, hey, this Cal game is like a 3-point game and Washington State's driving. And you're like, you know what? I'll watch Washington State Cal right now. Let me just take off this game. And you just you just clicked it. And which game did you want to replace? And that was it.
Yes. I feel like, sadly, early 2000s was like peak for watching streaming stuff. It's like they're doing too much with it, and you have all these different highlight options, which if they have these different highlight things, put on YouTube. Like that's the perfect place for it. That if I don't want to watch this whole thing, just put the little clip up, and then I don't have to deal with that, because it's frustrating and I know that part of the issue right now is that with events being filmed and broadcast during the times that they're on in Tokyo, and it doesn't match up with the times here. for someone who is really interested, like my wife trying to watch the gymnastics stuff has been a nightmare, because if you don't catch it at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning when the initial times are on, then you're waiting for these broadcasts, and it's like tonight gymnastics was supposed to be on at 8. What's on? Track, cycling. Like, there's everything else but gymnastics, and they put it on there as this stream of like, gymnastics is going to be on this channel, but is it? No. There's like 7 different things on there, and none of it's relevant. And you're right, they're showing qualifying from the world, and it's like, just get to, like, if you're going to show that, why can't you break it down to say, if we're watching gymnastics, watch gymnastics. If you're going to do like just the track events, have that. And then if you, off of the Peacock, if you're saying these are events, like with giving credit to ESPN for as much as it's driven me crazy, if you miss the game, like say there's a game you wanted to watch, within an hour they have it up and you can go back and you can watch it. Like Peacock, it's like, well, you missed it, so fuck off.
It's like, you missed it. Did you mean to watch the qualifying celebration? And it's like people jumping up and down outside of like a rowing thing, and you're like, "What am I watching? What is this?"
We want to show you their family's barbecue.
I tried to watch archery. It was a supercut of like 30 seconds of just the arrows hitting the target. I'm like,
everyone just thunk.
Matt, that's what it was. And then it showed like the person for a second, and I said, "How would I even know who the hell that is?"
You better read their flag really quick.
If it was like a NFL like kicker, like kicking the ball, and like they just showed you highlights of the ball going through the field goal post, and then they flash his face, I might be able to guess 10% of the kickers. But you're expecting me to just know these archers? Like, how would I know that? So I don't know. That's my last thing. Like, I had the Olympics medal tracker on here because everyone, for all the stuff and like the hype about, oh, United States is leading in medals, getting killed in gold. Like, if you weighted them, because it would be very easy for them to have like a weighted count where golds are worth 3 points, silver's worth 2, bronze worth 1, and they just added them up. And I almost put it together for the show, and then I thought, it's hard to, I don't want to just read numbers. I hate when we do that on the show, and I'm usually the culprit because I'm the stats guy. So, just to make it clear, if I did put that together, China would be killing, because they have like 8 more golds right now than the United States. And so it's like, all right, your medal trackers are great, and you're supposed to be celebrating, like the Olympics, you're celebrating all of the countries in the world. So, okay, so focus on the guys from the United States that are winning medals, but, also show me the actual gold medal winners. Because, like, they showed one race today, and I don't know what it was. It was one of the running ones. I don't know the distance, but it was the women's, and they were like, United States won a medal in a very close race. And not to knock the sprinter, she won bronze. The person that won gold beat everybody by, like, a complete second or two. And like the battle for bronze was just so close. I'm like, awesome. Highlight that and talk about our sprinter and how that was their first Olympics. Awesome. But like, who actually won? Like, as I'm watching the highlights, my eyes are just drawn to, the person that's winning. Like, and like to not even acknowledge it is weird, So that's my one thing. It would almost be like you're watching the Super Bowl for the Steelers, and like the entire time they're just focused on like Hines Ward, and they're like, or no, like actually, I'll give you a good example. So like that Super Bowl where the Eagles and T.O. had that great game, it would be like the entire time if they didn't show the plays, but they just showed T.O. running routes and catching balls, and then at the end of the game, you were like, oh my god, the Eagles lost. Like, I wish I would have known that. Like, what was I watching? I'm watching T.O. ball out here. But it's like the entire focus is just on him. But it's not like on the rest of the thing. Like, you're not like, hey, wait, we didn't even medal there. Why are they showing us? So it's kind of like, all right, show me a little bit of everything. That's all I want. And that's where I think going to the college, and even as the NFL makes this transition, you got to give me the option to watch whatever I want to watch. If you try to spoon feed me like I'm a moron, and I know that, like, hey, Michigan softball's on, we're ranked in the top 10, I want to check this game out, and instead you're showing me like Rutgers basketball or something, I'm going to be like, all right, calm down. Why can't I just go in? How I want the app to work, Matt, is that you log in and it lets you pick a favorite team if you have it, where all of their events would be the first row. Because you know how Netflix has like everything like horizontal or whatever?
Yeah.
So the first row would be all Michigan events. The second row would be which sports you like. So like if you prefer basketball, all the Michigan events, then all of the basketball events. And then you could have a couple of different rows. Maybe I have one for football. Football is not in season, so it's hidden. And then at the bottom, you have like all the rest of the ones just kind of grouped together, and then replays. And then that's where like, oh, if I want to search for replays, I can just search down here. Or like search replays by school. And then you can just filter it by sport and by year. Like they could make it very easy to use, and I don't think they're going to. I think most likely it's going to happen. You're going to fire up that Big Ten streaming app, and it's just going to pick whatever is on the cable, whatever's there. Like you're an Oklahoma fan. Hey, how come they're not showing any of our games anymore on this SEC network? Why am I forced to just watch all Alabama championship replays? Because you know they show that stuff. You know every once in a while they have like Alabama week where it's all Alabama stuff. And so, like, you're going to be paying for the streaming and you're going to get whatever they tell you to watch. That's my prediction on this. Just like the Olympics, so you know it's not a stretch. If you tried to watch the Olympics, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I know we're going a little bit long, so that's my last topic, Matt. Anything with the Olympics you wanted to hit on first?
Well, that was my most frustrating thing with the Olympics. And I think, like, when you look at, aside from the cluster that you're dealing with, trying to figure out when the times are for some of the stuff, because I think like I like the categories of that they did, but you're right. There's like you click on gymnastics and then you don't even see anything for it. It's like there's just nothing but the smaller highlight clips to it. There's like you don't see any of the like. It'd be easier to have like the qualifying, the some of the different events that like you could go back and see like which ones are there. Like,
and they could even know, Matt. They could very easily group it for gymnastics. Oh, you want to watch the vault finals? Here's a highlight of all the vault finals. We clipped it together for you, like and see the entire thing. Like not the archery, like where they just clipped it together of like thump, 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 thump. Could you imagine if they did that for the vault where it's just like 10 girls jumping back together? Like you just see, they even cut out the running. It's just them hitting it and them going, and they're like, what did I just watch? And they're like, don't worry. We got that down to 1 minute and 13 seconds for you. It's like, all right, that was pointless. Like if I'm streaming the Olympics, I want to kind of just, put it on. I don't want to pick up my remote, put something on, and then immediately have to find my remote because I'll lose it within a minute, Matt. Like if I put on archery and they show me thwack, 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 and then it's over and I'm like, what? And I have to pick something else? Where'd my remote go? Like I just want to pick. Like just let me pick all of the gymnastic events and just let it go. But like for whatever reason, they don't want to do it and they don't have ads for it. And like you said, your YouTube idea is great because they already have these clips and guess what? They already aren't showing ads, so they're not monetizing them. Why not put them on YouTube? YouTube runs the ads for you. You have to do absolutely nothing.
And I think you made a really good point, too, that would actually make it so much better. Rather than having them just force whatever sports they're going to make accessible for you, I like that idea of being able to say, if I'm paying for, say, ESPN Plus, I want to be able to have it where I have access to the Florida State games. Or even if it's pick 2 or pick 3 schools that you're going to follow, because maybe you want to keep track of how your rivals are doing. So you have that option of being able to keep like your football like primary. I think that was an outstanding idea because then like for sure you're going to see the games that you want to see. There are a couple times where you're looking and you haven't, and I've had trouble trying to find games, whether through through the streaming sites. It's chaotic trying to have that coordinated. Where if you just have it, like if ESPN has someone broadcasting those games, that you can say, I want all of these games available to me, that makes life so much easier. And I don't want to hear this nonsense of it being blacked out. If you're paying for it and there's someone recording them that's going to show highlights at your 10 o'clock viewing of Sports Center, make it accessible. That's the bullshit part of it.
Well, that's the one thing that also annoys me is wherever, and I'm going to move this to the final bill. So, like, they all do this. So, like, if you're watching on ESPN and they'll say, like, hey, coming up next is Wisconsin, Iowa. And you're like, hey, you know what? I'll check that game out. But they don't tell you what channel it's on because it's, like, on Fox or somewhere else. And they're like, ESPN just won't even put it on there. So it'll just say, like, underway. And you're like, hey, is that on TV? I don't know. So then you have to put in Google. And so if you go on ESPN, they still don't tell you what channel it's on. So you have to go to Fox, and then if it's like an SEC game, maybe it's on CBS, but they don't tell you that either. So, like, just tell me. Like, if I sign in, and I know they're still going to have the so-called blackouts, but for the national games, which are on cable or on over the air, so they're free anyway, I hope to God that it will at least say, like, here's all the Big Ten games right now. And so, like, if Ohio State's playing Penn State at the bottom, it will tell me, hey, that game's on ABC. So that I know, like, all right, I just need to go back to ABC for that one. And so, like, for people that are listening that are like, I don't have that, you can buy an antenna for $30 at Walmart and get all those games for free. And that includes all the NFL games that are on regular. So do that first before you pay for any streaming. It's August, and you have some games coming up. Like I said, the Hall of Fame game is on Fox. Go buy an antenna if you don't have one. I had one in an apartment once where really thick walls, and I just stuck it right above the window, and I picked up all the games. Now, of course, I'm down here, so I'm right outside Raleigh, which is the capital, major city, all kind of towers. But get one. Another pro tip is if you have access to your attic, you can drop one in from your attic. You'll get better signal the higher up it is, and you can even get some for your roof if you don't care. But, like, do that first before you pay for streaming. Take a month off, pay the $30 or whatever if you can't afford it, and get that antenna, hook that up, because then you're going to get most of the main games and then worry about filling it in. So I should have gave that tip earlier in the summer when there wasn't that much on, but that's my beef right now. So that's all I had. You have anything else for the final bell?
No, I don't. Just excited to get some football back going, and our camp's going to be starting here next week, so it'll be good to get out, and we'll have more updates for you come next week.
Yep, sounds good. We'll be checking in with Matt, seeing how training camp's going. I'll be following up on the Steelers, some of the other NFL stuff that's going on, and keeping an eye on the college stuff. Hopefully, like I said, we can get just more access. I think that's going to help all around. And they talk about the Olympic sports, like, oh, no one knows some of these sports exist. Guess what? They're on the ACC network. They're on the Big Ten network. You just can't watch them. Like, you just can't watch them. So maybe they can expand some of this, and it might get kids interested in saying, like, instead of watching one sport every once in a while, you could even show club sports, because some of them, like the rock climbing and stuff, I'm pretty sure teams have club sports for those already. Put them on the network. If people are going to pay, and you can have you could even make it a pay per team option. I think most people would opt for the entire conference. So, like, if they wanted to do $10, you could pick one team to follow, or like 15 to 20, you can pick the entire conference. I think most people would pay the 20, because, like you said, you never know if there's going to be a rivalry game that's much bigger. Watch that instead of, like, your team's off that night. So we'll keep an eye on it. But thanks for listening. Check out southboundsports.com. We'll keep our episodes posted there, and we have some other stuff in the works. So make sure you go there to get all your Southbound Sports news. We'll keep you updated. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.